Hey, what's happening, guys? I hope you're all having a great day out there, but if not, I certainly hope it's about to get better after this video because I have a double feature lined up for these throwback reviews. Glass is now out in theaters. I wanted to review these two films that led up to this final chapter in the Shyamalan trilogy. I want to let you know there's also going to be more than likely some spoiler talk in these reviews, so if you haven't seen Unbreakable or Split, certainly go do so. I recommend them. Then come back and join in on the conversation. If you've seen these movies or don't care about spoilers, stick around because I think it's going to be some fun. Let's get started with Unbreakable from 2000. This was Shyamalan's construction of the comic book hero from a very grounded perspective. The script from Shyamalan was able to just weave the foundation of concepts behind this notion and idea of a normal man being in possession of special abilities. It was as realistic of his origin story as I can ever remember seeing. It just strips away the colorful costumes, the heat vision and the ice breath are gone, and this wasn't a version of a hero with his chin up and his chest out like we're used to seeing. Because in this film, David Dunn is a broken man. His family's falling apart. He has the abilities, but they're so subtle to the point where they're nearly unnoticeable. And I think it was fascinating to see this concept of a story being explored. I mean, as the viewer, we get to learn of Dunn's powers with him. And I think the way Shyamalan wove this growth was just incredibly compelling and also genuinely unpredictable. I think the suspension of disbelief needed for nearly every other comic book movie was not needed in this one. It felt very realistic. It felt very raw at times, and as Dunn learned more about himself, it just created as relatable of a hero as I've ever seen on the big screen. Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis brought in some of their finest work to this project. I think they were both perfectly casted for these roles. To me, this is still one of Willis's most shining performances. He's very tormented by these abilities at times, and he's really just conflicted with his own rational thinking, and I just felt the layers of his character really revealed themselves with just a lot of sincerity and a lot of heartfelt emotion to them. I mean, he's a common man with a lot of common problems that turn into uncommon problems, and as his character evolves and he embraces his powers, he still kind of does feel like that normal man without the duality of an alter ego being needed. He is always David Dunn. It wasn't a Superman Clark Kent scenario. He always was himself, and with the simple addition of the raincoat, the symbolism is captured with even more impact than had he put on the spandex and the cape for our visual cue references. I think the same goes for Jackson's Elijah Price. It's a creepy man with his own backstory and a lot of reasoning to be the archetype of a villain, and simple color cues with his purple attire were very subtle but also very striking, and through his dialogue, Jackson provoked just so much thought and was just effectively solid at being the catalyst of this film. I mean, what really sounds like the ramblings of a man who spent way too many years reading comic books, I think he was really able to subtly just lay the groundwork for a real world with heroes and villains, and just throughout the entire story with some well thought out dialogue. I thought Jackson's character created not only the belief system behind a real society with enhanced humans, but he also lays out the rationale behind it with theories of purpose, the science of a human's physical makeup, and the ends of the spectrum between two people who may have unknown connections and the meanings behind it. And I think exploring the comics from this angle was just incredibly fascinating. And I think it still captures that fascination even if you've already watched it, because you can really always pull deeper meanings out of the dialogue and the concepts, and I respect that very much. It's a script that rouses a lot of questions. It builds a ton of curiosity. It makes me think outside of the box, and that's one of the most appealing qualities to me. But it also is woven onto a very cold, somber backdrop, and Shyamalan incorporates a lot of slow pans and just a methodical approach to the camera work overall to create a very bleak atmosphere that always effectively pulls me in. So I'm going to have to give Unbreakable 95% on the entertainment meter. I love it. I definitely think it was a near perfect film for what it set out to accomplish. I would have liked a little bit more intensity from Willis. I think the overly solemn demeanor could have been dialed back just a little bit. I think he was just a little bit too mopey in the first half of the story. Also, I would have liked a little bit more of a reasoning to the connection of the family structure that we see in the movie. It's given a decent amount of screen time, but I think some of those areas could have gone to exploring other areas of the story a little bit more, like possibly laying more of the groundwork to Mr. Glass and his turn turn to being an evil mastermind. I think when this moment hit in the third act closing, I would have liked to maybe one or two more scenes after that, but as it was, I still definitely think it's one of the all-time great movies out there, and I think it's one of the best from Shyamalan to date. Now let's talk about Split, starring James McAvoy as Kevin, a man with 23 distinct personalities living inside of him. He seems like a normal guy on the outside, but he is absolutely far from that. He's been compelled by one of his superior personalities to abduct 3 high school girls as he awaits the unleashing of a sinister 24th personality that has yet to manifest itself. This movie was probably one of the most oddly, but maybe most well-marketed sequels in cinematic history. I mean, with no connections to Unbreakable and coming out 16 years later, this was a strong standalone film that had deep ties which went relatively unnoticed. And then we get our Willis cameo. The realization this movie was not only in the same world, but also a functioning sequel immediately made me want to rewatch it with that knowledge going in, simply wanting to just try to piece together more similarities and small clues and any of the subtle connections that I could find. And as a sequel or a film on its own, I think it's a fantastic movie. It's an intriguing script with just being paired with a phenomenal performance by James McAvoy. And I mean, much like Unbreakable did, this one really built a grounded foundation to the construction of this beast notion. It also used some genuine rationale to the fictional science behind it all, and I was all in on the exploration of these personalities that were living inside of Kevin. And McAvoy, as I said, was amazing in this role. He truly captured a very unique delivery and persona for each personality we get to see in this story, and it was just fascinating and creepy to see evolve. His gestures, mannerisms, and expressions were all unique for each individual living inside of the character, and watching McAvoy flow between them all was just awesome to see. I think the younger cast, headlined by Anya Taylor-Joy, were all perfectly casted as well. Their delivery of many different emotional reactions really did heighten the intensity of specific scenes, just as I thought they were needed to. The oddities of McAvoy's performance were just naturally unsettling on their own, and watching Taylor-Joy, Richardson, and Sula just deal with the situations that they were in and just trying to find any weaknesses amongst these personalities had me constantly on edge. It's not always something I like in Shyamalan films, but it's always something I respect, and that is the unknown, and this movie definitely has a ton of that to really keep me completely invested. Now, I will admit that not all of Shyamalan's stories worked for me, but I think this one without question did. I thought it was just layered with tons of intrigue. It was tightly organized, and it really showed thought as it just built the science behind the possibilities of McAvoy's 24th personality and just really peeling back the emotional layers of the character at the same time while the story's progressing. And it just created a plot that really just slowly built up the tension to what I think was a very satisfying third act. The story didn't try to do too much. It was almost able to silently connect itself to the world of Unbreakable, but on its own, it's still a very tense, suspenseful movie that left me thinking long after. It complements the story with a lot of grim visual appeal. The set designs and many locations were just, I thought, perfectly selected to just build onto the already tense subject matter. The musical score was just very calculating and unnerving, and with Shyamalan's direction, it really works in some nice horror undertones as well. And I love watching this movie for the performance of McAvoy alone, but it does create a very foreboding atmosphere, and I would say I'd have to give Split 90% on the entertainment meter. I really would have liked the backdrop to Anya Taylor-Joy's character developed a little bit quicker. I wanted to connect more with her character earlier on rather than just naturally feeling bad for the position that they were in, I guess you could say. I mean, overall, I did enjoy the way this subplot evolved the character arc. I just would have liked it worked in a little bit sooner with more of a focus to just, I guess you could say, complement McAvoy's character a little bit more. And also, while I really did enjoy the David Dunn cameo at the very end, I would have possibly liked it woven in a little bit sooner in the film, not in the first half, somewhere later. I think this would have just greatly increased the overall intensity of the film in the third act. But again, as it was, I still love this movie. So those are my thoughts on these two films. Let me know what you guys thought of these two Shyamalan movies down below. Let me know what you guys thought of Glass as well. Curious to hear what you guys thought, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. I would love to hear from you all. Here are some links to some recent reviews just in case you missed them. The link to my official website, all my social media and merchandise store links are going to be down in the description below. And in the event me talking to you guys about movies every couple days is not enough Anthony in your life, I now have a second YouTube channel with a growing collection of non-movie related content for you guys to check out, and I'll see you guys next time.